In this video, we'll be looking at this mFish PowerPort 65-watt charger. They did send a sample for review, but as always, that does not affect our opinion in any way. This is just the box that it comes in, which we'll go ahead and open up here. So you can see the first thing we have is the user manual. Then it looks like we just have the charger itself. I believe there's nothing else in the box here. Yeah, so just the charger and the user manual, pretty standard. So looking closer at the charger itself here, you can see we do have a nice nylon braided cable. This is about 5 feet long, so pretty good length to it. Then we have your standard 2-prong adapter, which goes into the wall, of course. The actual charging piece itself here is a kind of a nice metal cylinder. On the top here, we do have 3 ports. It is a total of 65 watt, but that will depend on how you use those ports. So we do have 2 USB-C ports and then a single USB-A port. If you're using just one port, you can get the full 65 watts out of either of the USB-C ports, and the USB-A port will be limited to 22.5 watts. If you use 2 ports, you can get 45 watts out of the first USB-C port and 20 watts out of the second one. Or if you use the bottom 2 ports, you'll get 7.5 watts out of each. So that's kind of the only bad way to use this. If you just use the second USB-C port and the USB-A port, they'll only run at 7.5 watts each, which is a little bit odd. But if you run the first USB-C port and the USB-A port, you'll get 45 watts out of the USB-C and 18 watts out of the USB-A. And if you use all 3 ports, you'll still get 45 watts out of that USB-C, and then you'll get 15 watts out of these second other ports. So it's a little bit odd, and it's slightly annoying that you need to be careful about which specific ports you use. If you're using the first USB-C port and then any other combination, you're essentially golden, but you do kind of want to use them in a top-down order. So it's not too bad, it's just something else to think about. The hard part is that since it's a cylinder, it's kind of easy to like flip it around, and you know, if it's in the dark or something, it's hard to see exactly which one you're connecting to. So it's a little bit negative that you do need to think a little bit extra about which one you're going to be using, and you will have a great difference in charging speeds depending on which port you use. I also kind of wish it was a cube instead of a cylinder so that it would be easier to mount into a desk, but that might be getting to the point of nitpicking. So overall, it's pretty solid. In order to actually use it, of course, it's as simple as either plugging this part in, but this part actually comes apart as well. So if you wanted to just use this as a wall adapter, you're able to do that. I think most people will probably use it with the extension cord. I think that's kind of the main selling point. As a wall adapter, it's pretty large overall, but I guess it would be kind of comparable to a laptop charger, which just even has the 1 port. So it's definitely pretty small given its capacity, but it still is a pretty large charging brick overall. It's definitely going to stick pretty far out of the wall. So I think it's maybe nicer to use it like this, and then you have this part going to the wall, and then this wraps around your bed or something like that, so you have easy access to this sort of cylinder. So overall, it's definitely a very solid alternative to your normal charging block that just kind of goes on the wall and only has probably 1 or 2 ports on it at the most, especially the fact that it runs at 65 watts and having 3 ports is definitely a very big advantage to this product. As well as having a built-in extension cord, there's just all kind of good things here. The only kind of gripe I was mentioning is that you need to be a little bit deliberate about which port you're using, just because you're going to get slower charging speeds. But it's definitely not a huge deal, especially if you're leaving your charging cables actually plugged into this, then you're going to be just using the same cables every time and not having to worry about which port you're putting it in. But overall, it's definitely a very solid product. It feels very well built with this sort of nylon cable, as well as the metal cylinder up here, so it's definitely pretty solid overall. You're going to get really fast charging speeds to most of your devices, and it's a very solid alternative to most chargers out there.